Hello, students. This is a recording to help you do assignments on inheritance. So this is part A of the assignment. So it asks you to write a class person that is going to have a private variable, last name, first name, address, city, state, and zip. And here it is very basic. Basically, uh, there is nothing complicated. You already know how to know that the data is usually declared private, and under the private area you declare the strings for the city, states, and zip. Notice zip, it is okay here to be a string even though it's numbers, but it is something that you don't do arithmetic with it, so it could be a string. um, Here, for the constructor receives value. This is the the regular constructor. It receives value for all of the private members and initializes them. Again, nothing that you guys haven't have had problems with. Then the default constructor basically initializes everything to 0 or null in this case because it's strings. And we have a mutator functions, or other name for mutator functions is setters. And remember the setter functions, each variable, private variable, have to have its own setter. So set last name, set first name, set address, set city. It receives a parameter to and sets the private variable. And the accessors or getter functions, they are usually constants, as we know. They just return the value, the current value of the private variable, last name, first name, address, city, and state. And basically this is the parent class or father class. Parent class, person data. Now they ask you to create a class that inherits from person data. It's called uh, customer data class. Notice it says class customer data, public person data, right? This is how we indicate that this is the parent of this class. This is the syntax. If you have forgotten, class customer data colon and then public person data. Here are the private members, the additional. Remember, the customer data is going to inherit all the private members uh, of the parent class, but it also have more its own, like a customer number and Boolean mailing list that is going to say if the customer wants to be included in the mailing list or not. So the constructor, remember, it receives data for all variables and calls explicitly the parent constructor, sends the values that belong to the parent constructor variables, and initializes its own. So this is how it works. All right. This is a syntax issue mostly. We studied how this works. If you have any question regarding this, please don't hesitate to email me. And then here, that is the default constructor. It calls its parent default constructor and also initializes its new members, its own members, to 0 and false for the mailing list. And here there are mutators and accessors. It's again, because it inherits the functions from the parent class, it doesn't have to rewrite them. It can rewrite them, but it doesn't have to. This is a very basic exercise. It provides only additional setters for its own new variables and two getters for its own new variables. And the main function is the driver function that you test if your class works properly. So here, notice we have to include the two header files, and then we have this a prototype display customer. In main function, we create a customer one and send variables for last name, first name, address, uh, state and zip code and whatever customer number and mailing list, state, willingness or not, and then it calls uh, the display customer to display basically the customer, and then it creates another customer. Here in this example, it creates the customer by calling the setter function. Now you don't have to call the setter function. This is just one way to do it, right? You can still create it the same way like here. Just make sure that the order of the arguments is proper, all right? So here the new customer is set up by using the setter functions. Jenny Jones from Livermore, and she doesn't want to be on the mail list, all right? False means she doesn't want to be. And then again, calls the function display customer. Pretty simple, Notice here in the display function, we call the getter functions to display the customer, both customer, because this is a separate function. Every time it will receive different object and will display this different customer. Notice I told you here that you can do it through the constructor, but remember the main function, it's actually the purpose of the driver function is to test all functions if they work or not. So that's why maybe it is better to use the setters to make sure that they work properly for the customer too. Here you test the constructor, the setter functions, and in the function you test the getter functions, right? So now that we are done, here for the mailing list, remember if it returns true, the mail is yes, otherwise it's no, if the customer doesn't want to receive email from the company. Okay, so if I run this, it will just display the two customers. It should display, here they are, customer one, Smith Joan from North Carolina, and he wants to be on the mail list, right? And customer 2 is Jenny Jones. She's in Livermore and she doesn't want to be on the mail list. Basically, this is a very, very basic exercise just to test your basic understanding of inheritance. I hope this helps and thank you for your attention.